Yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy? Sports and Fitness Rant. I'm back, guys. Click that like button. Subscribe to my channel. Ladies and gentlemen, on my channel, I'm always telling you guys, live an active lifestyle, make smart nutritional choices. Move more and sit less, ladies and gentlemen, right? Fight against the laziness. It's not about perfection, but about consistency. It's not about what you look like in the mirror, but about how you feel, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm always trying to give you certain tips and, certain ideas of exercises that you can do that you don't need a gym. You don't need any fancy equipment, right? All you need is some space and opportunity, right? And, I want to talk today and show you guys, an exercise that I've shown you guys before that I call the Rocky Balboa push-up. And essentially what it is a plyometric push-up. It's a crossover push-up, right? That's all it is. But it's the explosion. It's the plyometric of it, right? We want to work on our power, on our explosiveness when we're doing this move. So like I tell you guys, I'm always trying to give you guys different exercises that I do, that, like I said, that seem to work for me, that give me a good overall sense of well-being, a good sense of strength, a good sense of fitness. I always try to give you guys exercises that I've done throughout my life that get me to the point where I'm at right now. Like I said, I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not the most in shape person. I'm not the strongest person. But the one thing that I am is a regular everyday person, like just people like you out there every day. I'm not a fitness influencer. I don't have a big social media following. I'm not sponsored by a supplement company. I'm not trying to sell you a product or any of this kind of stuff. I'm a regular everyday person, just like you. I don't go and work out in a fancy gym. I'm literally in my garage here, guys. All right. So there's nothing special about me. I'm a regular everyday person, guys. I got a wife and kids, man. I work a regular job. All right. There's no advantages in my life over anybody else. All right. Now we've talked about things like genetics and, stuff like that. And yes, maybe genetically I have advantages over other people. But I've told you guys, as you get older in life, as you go through life, you start to understand when it comes to health and fitness, your genetics is only going to take you so far because that's mostly about the look. Yes, I might look a certain way. You might look a certain way. Other people are going to look a certain way based off of their genetics. Absolutely. But do not use that as an excuse for being lazy, right? Do not use that as a crutch for why you look the way you do or feel the way you do, because that's not an excuse, ladies and gentlemen. I told you guys, genetics don't wake me up in the morning to do these exercises. That's not genetics doing this. I told you guys, my mother's never worked out a day in her life. I've never seen my dad go to a gym, work out a day in her life, but they lived active lifestyles. I told you my mother was a runner. I watched my dad play basketball when I was young, up until he was probably in his 50s playing basketball. So they lived active lifestyles. Even to this day, my mother's damn near 70. My father's 75 years old. The man does all his own yard work, still cuts his own grass, right? He doesn't pay people to do these things. That's called being active. But my father can do these things. My mother can live that active lifestyle to this day because they always were active. So that's the key, guys, staying active. It's not about becoming the strongest person in the world or the fittest person or looking the best on the beach. That's not what it's about. That was never like that or never the way I thought about fitness. And that's not the way that my parents lived their life. That was never things that I was around. So I've told you guys about bodybuilding and how bodybuilding is nothing that a regular person needs. And some of the workouts that I've shown you, like I said, are just typical everyday exercises that people don't need special equipment to do, right? We've talked about the jump ropes and the farmer's carries. So we got the Rocky Balboa push-up, the plyometric push-up. So I told you guys, and I've showed you guys this exercise before. All you need is something to, put your hand on, to use as a platform to propel yourself off of, to push off of, all right? Not the ground. You need something a little bit elevated off the ground. So as you guys can see, I hope you guys can see in the video right here, I have this rock here. Right, you guys know I have these rocks. I have this big piece of stone here. So I'm going to put this down here. And I'm going to use this piece. I'm going to use this as the platform. All right, you can even use a dumbbell. You can get a weight like this, a dumbbell like this, and put this down and use that as a platform to push off. Take my headphones off here. All right, and really what we're going to do is essentially it's a push-up, but we're exploding. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate it real quick, guys, here. Like I said, I hope you guys can see it in the video here. And like I said, to me, this exercise works great for me. Like I said, when I talk about the explosive power, guys, and this is going to translate, all right, into pushing power. It will. All right, remember, we're going to be explosive. We're coming up, exploding off that platform, using that and going to the next rep, okay? Into the next rep. All right? Now, usually I will do about 20, 10 on each side. But, depending on how I'm feeling that day, sometimes I might do 12, 6 on each side, maybe 16, 8 on each side. You can do 10, 5 on each side. Remember, this is a plyometric exercise. You're exploding. You're pushing off of here, coming up, right, releasing and switching hands. So you guys have probably heard of the clap push-ups where you push up and you clap and then you catch yourself. That's a plyometric move. You're working on the explosion, your power. It's the same kind of thing. You're exploding, switching hands, okay? And I call it the Rocky Balboa push-up because I saw this on Rocky, I think it was Rocky 1, years and years and years ago. You know, here's the thing, guys, you know, inspiring or getting inspired from something like a movie. You know, back in the 80s, back in the 90s, the action stars that I grew up watching, these guys were known for being muscular, right? For having a physical on-screen presence. The Arnold Schwarzeneggers, right? The Jean-Claude Van Damme, Sylvester Stallone, right? These guys were known for having physiques, for being able to go out there and show or look like they're physically imposing, right? And using their physical abilities to their advantage. And, you know, a lot of these movies, they inspired kids, people like me at the time that was, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, growing up watching this stuff. They inspire you to be strong, to have a certain level of strength, but not only just being strong, but to think about health and fitness, to think about, you know, our bodies and how we should be taking care of our bodies and not taking these things for granted. Like I told you guys, movement is the key. And as we get older, we begin to move less and less, to begin to move slower and slower, right? So these are kinds of things that we want to keep doing so that we can stay quick. So think about incorporating this into your workout. You know, I'll do this and then I'll go and get a rock. I'll go and get one of my rocks. And then I'll walk around with this rock. You guys have seen me do the farmer's carries, right? Where I'll hold this rock close to my body, right? And I'll walk back and forth a distance. You know, sometimes I do a couple of these things, right? Where I have a bunch of rocks and I'll pick up rocks, different weights, run it down, pick up another rock, run it back down. You know what I'm saying? Just going back and forth, called the rock shuttle run. So what you have there is a pushing movement, right? There's an explosive push-up essentially, right? A plyometric push-up. So you're exploding, doing the push-up, which is a push. Like I said, this is going to work on your pushing power. This translates, ladies and gentlemen. If you're doing this exercise, like I said, you don't have to do it the exact way that I'm doing it. But if you're doing this exercise, I guarantee you regular, normal push-ups will be a lot easier. And you'll notice that your pushing power has increased. I guarantee it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you guys right now, this stuff works. It translates into the real world, guys, everyday life. And then obviously the farmer's carry, right, is a pulling movement. You're using the pulling muscles, right? I'm using my back muscles to keep the weight stable. I'm using my biceps, right? You're using the pulling. So a push and a pull, right? I've told you guys to think about these kinds of things when you're picking out your exercise selection, how you decide to exercise, which exercises you're doing, the order you're doing them in. You have to think about pushing, pulling, a hip hinge, a squat, a lower body movement. These are the kinds of areas that you want to think about for your overall fitness, guys, right? Don't forget about your legs. Don't forget about using the pushing and the pulling movements. All right, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget about that stuff. So that's a great exercise right there. You go from the plyometric push-up into the farmer's carry, ladies and gentlemen. And then after that, if you wanted to continue and do another exercise, like you guys know I like to do these circuits where I'll do about 3 or 4 exercises back to back to back with no rest, and then I'll rest a minute and then do them again. I would throw in a step up or a jump lunge or a walking lunge after that. All right. And that would be like a routine for me, a normal everyday routine that I would do. So you guys know the deal, man. And you guys know what to do. You guys have to get out there, get moving. Think about some of these exercises that I've shown you on my playlist. Exercise that you can do at home, guys, or workouts you can do at home is the title of the playlist. So get out there and get moving.